no time to rest.
As promised, I am continuing with the DJ series, comparing DJing with CDJs versus DJing with Ableton Live. If you didn't see that video already, where I talk in depth about the pros and the cons of DJing with either CDJs or Ableton Live, you can check it out in the previous video listed above. In this first video, I'm going to give you an overview about how to first start working with the audio inside of Ableton Live to get it ready for DJing. So let's get into it. Okay, so let's choose our file. We will be working with a track by Oyio called Blind Date. I'm just going to go here into my browser within Ableton Live. And here I have some folders that I can access. So I know where I put it, so I'll just find it. And I'm going to drag it into the session. And so now the first thing I notice is that it's difficult for me to work with this file because there's no indication of a filing system. This is just sort of the raw name of the track as it came from the artist. So let me quickly show you my user library and show you how I actually generally label my tracks so that I can easily find them as if it were my record box crate. So I like to file things by the key using the coding from harmonic mixing or the Camelot wheel. So the key, like this 5A, stands for a certain musical key. And then, of course, the BPM. And then I always generally start with the artist name and then the name of the track. So this happens to be... And so how do I name this file? I don't know the key and I don't know the tempo immediately. So I go to Rekordbox and I have already imported this track into Rekordbox, which analyzed it. And originally, like right now, it already says 2A, which is a code from the Camelot wheel. But if I were to analyze this track, it will set it back to whatever the original findings were. So, as you see here, E flat minor and a BPM of 123. Great, that's all I needed. Thank you very much. And if I take a look at, where is it? I want to find my Camelot wheel. There it is. So E flat minor is 2A. That's very helpful for me. I can close that. And so now I will rename this file starting with 2A and the BPM of 123. I know the artist name is Oyio. That's a buddy of mine from Bucharest, Romania. We played a DJ set together when I was brought out to DJ at a party called the Excess Show at a really nice club called the Control Club. We had a great sweaty time and people were just taking things off and it was wild. It was fun. I hope I get to go back and play again. But either way, we still have this connection lasting across the distance. Because Oyio asked me if I could make this video about how I DJ with Ableton Live. Here we go. I'm just renaming it. And now it matches my file system. And one thing I notice with the color of the tracks in Ableton is sometimes, for my eyes, it can be a little bit hard to see. Like, I want to see the name of the track pop out so that if I'm in a dark club, I can see what's going on. So sometimes it just means I have to choose a different color, and then it pops because it changed to a white text instead of the black text. Okay, Next step is we have to warp it. To warp this, first of all, we double click on the audio file and we see this window down at the bottom, and we could just warp it. But if our tempo is on something other than what the actual tempo of the track is, when we hit warp, Ableton Live is going to think that this is supposed to be the tempo, 93. But we know that this track is actually the tempo of 123. So I'm going to undo that with the Apple and Z command. And I'm going to go back up here and I'm going to change our session tempo to 123. And now when I hit warp, it shows up as warping with the idea of 123 in mind. And it should be pretty much on target because this song starts with a kick and it's the same tempo straight through. So let's see. I'm going to turn on the metronome here by clicking this. And now I'm going to press play.
No time to rest. No time to rest. No time.
I'm going to fast forward kind of towards the end and let's see if it still sounds on.
Project more than you imagine. In the matter, we'll look best. We'll look best. We'll look best. We'll look best.
Yeah, I mean, we're almost at the end of the track and it's pretty much right on. I try not to make it too perfect because I still want to have some human element to all of this here. So now that that is settled in, one of the biggest issues you could have is that perhaps you can't save the track like this. Because like if I close out of this session and I forget to save or something like that, if I brought this track back in, I would have to re-warp it, or I would have to make sure I found the exact version that's connected. Anyway, it gets deep, but it doesn't always save the way you want. And if you want to be able to use this track as coming from like a DJ crate where it's ready to go, then you need to save it. You like drag it to your user library. So I would literally like, let's see. I don't know. I'm going to call this Electro Dance. So I would just take this file and drop it into this folder, and it already shows up as the file name there, and I can just finalize that. And now, even if I close out of the session and in 5 months or in 1 week, I open the session and I decide I want to play this song, it's ready for me. I can just bring it back in and it has the exact same warp settings. It's cool. But what's even more cool is that now I can chop this track up and save a version of it that has cue points and saved loops that I can work with. So what do? Just as a quick example, in this case, I am going to say that maybe this section here could be useful. Okay, so actually I like that, I don't know what to call it. It's like a squawky sound or whatever. I like what happened there. So how can I use it? I'm going to put on the loop. You saw that by clicking loop here, and I populated that. And now I'm going to start a small loop here. And make it tight. And let's just see what happens if I play that. Let me take off the metronome. Like, if I want, I could use that as a transition effect, or I can overlay it over something else, maybe. But let's see. So I'm going to Command D, duplicate from the main track. On the top one, I'm going to change the loop because I still want this top track to be sort of the mother track. So I'm going to take this loop that I just created and I'm going to make like a safety end loop just in case I run out of time and need there to be a loop. So let's say the track is playing. Oops, let's put the start. If I'm playing, so we see that there is a loop happening there. Now I just have to position it in a place that makes sense.
No time to rest.
So that took me a minute to just get it sorted, but the idea here is that if you already know that, sorry, I just hit my controller. If you already know that that's the end of the track, you don't have to just let the track run out. You can set up a predetermined end loop if you want, and it will stay there, so that if you ever play the track straight through and you run out of time, it will loop. But I prefer to make little loops like this along the way, which if I copy and paste, if I duplicate and make another option here, I can choose a whole nother section of the track and work with it. So what's happening here? Let's see. Okay, that just gives me another point to work with. This works, what I'm trying to show you here is that this works the same way that cue points work, and can also work the same way as memory loops, the way they operate in CDJs. Okay, so what I've just made here, if I'd stop hitting my controller accidentally, what I've just made here is a memory loop. Two different memory loops. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to set a cue point to happen at this area, which appears to be a break. And if I wanted, I could set up another point for where the drop is. So this may not be exactly how I would do it for every track, but in this case, that's just what I'm doing. So here I will remove the loop feature and I would just move the start point of the track to here, what appears to look like a okay. So it's not really a break, but let's see. Right. So hopefully you get the point of what's possible here. In this case, I would much rather start it there where that new drum beat happened, and that will be a cue point where that interesting switch up happens for me. There are some other techniques that I do when I chop up tracks like this. For example, if there's no musical information on that particular loop. Like, let's say it's just drums and it's not dependent upon key. I will change. Let's see. I think all of these have music. Yeah. So then what you could do is you could name all of these. And I'm going to copy and paste this one at the end and say, all right, well, I want to also independently be able to control jumping to what I would say is the end loop or the outro. Okay. So this is my outro. So it took me a few minutes to get it there during the tutorial, but I do have my own process, which feels very different when I'm not recording a tutorial and filming myself. So this may have been a bit clunky, this section, and I assure you, once you have your process, it doesn't feel as tedious. You just get right through it. We have these sections, and they are all named and grouped near each other, ready for use. But I want to make sure I can access this again. So I must insert it into my user library. Now, you saw earlier I put just the individual track there, but now I want to actually put this whole clip pack there. Right? So I'm going to copy this text, because that's going to be the name of it, of my file, and I'm going to highlight all of these and simply drag it over into my user library. And as you see here, it says audio or one audio. It's a very generic file name. So now I'm just going to paste the file name or type the file name I want in there. And you'll see side by side the audio file all by itself, represented with a ALC. So this is not the actual audio. This is a sort of a pointer to where the audio is on your drive, but with all the warping information that you put there. This is that same it's representing the chops that we just did, and it's just all in one group. So that's there, so that if you ever want to call on it again in the future, you can just drag it over and it's there. Let's try and find a track to work with this. I know just off the top of my head that if I had to make a quick decision, but that I hope will sound good, I'm going to search for 2A, other tracks that have 2A, because I know that harmonically they will work well together. So I'm searching my user library by typing in 2A. I'm going to pick something from the label. Let's see, who do we have? We have a track by Anna Leopolder called CU. Let's drag that over. Now this one I never did chop up, so let's just make a quick chop for that. Okay, so I just quickly put together some quick loops to play with. I'm not going to go through the whole naming process. I think you get why it's important. This can be really confusing if all the names are the same or not descriptive enough. Okay, so here we are. We're at the place where we can now start playing between these two tracks. But also where if we really want to find these tracks again, we can. With all our same settings and same clips or loops. All right? For example, we could also, if we know we like the way these two tracks work together, we can save them together as a song pack. So, for example, if I go back to my folder where I was, which was the electro folder. There it is. I could take both of these, drag them over to that folder, put them there, and I could name this Oyio pack. Okay, and if I were to eliminate those two from a session and open up a brand new session, in fact, I'm going to do that. I'm going to open up a brand new session. I'm going to close this. Okay, so it's just a random session. So let's pull in the Oyio pack. Oh wow, look at that. It showed up exactly as I intended. And that's a smart thing to do for a DJ in general. I think many, if not most of us, have certain songs that we already know work together, so we keep them in the same folder. So this is very similar to that. Okay, so in the next video, you will get to see how we actually build the session so that we can work as DJs. Get yourself ready for part 2. Let me know how you do in the comments below.